Hi, everybody. Jennifer Bronsnick here, and I am super excited to be sharing my good friend Kim Calichio with you. So, Kim and I met, I don't know, like 2 years ago, I think it was, at a business retreat with Britt Bolnick. And I was just super inspired by her and just amazed by her passion because it's in an area that I am totally not an expert in. So she's an expert chef. But not only that, but also about getting our kids in the kitchen and eating healthy foods and even making changes in our world around the food that we eat. So I wanted to bring Kim to all of you today because I think now it's August, kids are going back to school. I know I'm thinking about, what am I going to do for dinners? I actually randomly happened to print this out. It's like a monthly meal planning. It's empty, so there's that. And so hopefully by the end of my time with Kim, I'll have some clue of what I'm going to do, because I think summer I get into a food rut. I have no idea. It's like the same five things. I'm a health coach. I know, on an intellectual level, I know what my kids are supposed to be eating. I know what I'm supposed to be eating, but without this plan and a strategy, it's not happening. So Kim, thank you for being here, and I really, really appreciate it. So tell me more about you and your business.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and get to share with your audience. So my business, The Connected Chef, is all about essentially that, connecting people through food. For me, it started out as I love to eat, so I needed to learn how to cook for myself. But food has become a medium of sorts, and really a way to bring people together and to connect not only our immediate family, but to connect with those around us in our community as well. So that's really something that I'm super passionate about, and all of the content that I provide my community is really focused around that. How do we connect with food? And there's always that underlying feel there. With that said, I'm also a mom of two young boys, 4 and 2. So I know what it's like to have to deal with mealtime and how to go back to school and have to figure all of that out. When I became a mom, I realized that my view on food was a little bit different than other mothers around me, just because I had the experience as a professional chef. And my thinking about methods and techniques of cooking was in the forefront, where other people were thinking about recipes and what do I cook? What ingredients do I buy? So that is really a main difference in focus in the classes that I teach people. So I provide cooking classes for both kids independently, but also for families and adults as well. And across the board, all the classes are based on method and technique of cooking. Because I truly believe that if you're knowing how to braise food and what that is, how to sear things, how to build flavor, all of those components, it's less overwhelming in the long run. And then you're not stuck on 5 things to eat for the summer. And it kind of really opens up your creativity. And then it naturally brings in that connection to your kids and your family while you're cooking too. So yeah, that is all my passion and what I want to bring to the table to my clients. Yeah.
So in your classes, do you find that, because I feel like and I'm sure I'm not alone, but I feel like my kids, especially my oldest, is a super picky eater. Mm-hmm. And so do you find that when you have picky eaters in your class that they are more adventurous because they're with other kids trying things, or have you seen any of those transformations where it's you get a picky eater and they come to your classes, they learn how to chop, and then they eat cucumber or something?
Yes. Yes and no to some extent. So my theory, my belief is that picky eaters there's fear behind that, really. And that's what's at the root of all of that. And there's children who are naturally more adventurous and less fearful to try new things. So that's typically not going to be an issue in their family or situation. And then there's other kids who are naturally a bit fearful and a bit more resistant or kind of like cautious. And then there's also kids who there's been some kind of trauma or something specific that's triggered a fear. And sometimes it doesn't have to be food specific. Sometimes that fear just comes from trying something new.
Right.
And I think that parents are really surprised when they realize that it doesn't always stem from food stuff. And it could start, they, for one reason or another, and this is dependent on the child and their situation, that fear comes up. And what I really like to do in my classes is not, so some cooking classes there's like this, you have to try things. And it's a little bit more forceful. For me, and with a psychology background, I really feel strongly about listening to the child and kind of stepping back and waiting. And with kids who are picky, sometimes the first whole series that they're in, they're not trying things. But for me, that's okay, because for me, it's about the exposure, because it's a long game. It's not, the goal for them to come into class is not to all of a sudden go home and be eating everything, because that's not realistic.
Yeah, no.
So really giving them the exposure and creating this positive relationship with food is what's super important. And then down the line, other stuff is going to come.
Right. Yeah, no, I just had like this whole aha moment because my daughter has nut allergies. And she's had an experience where she ate something and she had a reaction to it. And it wasn't a bad reaction, but I'm sure my reaction to her reaction and just my fear and this sort of like, what's going on? Like what's happening to me kind of experience. And I hadn't even put the two together.
Yeah, it can be scary for them.
Right. Like she's had, experiences that she's eaten something that I've suggested and had a reaction. So there's that level of trust. Am I going to be okay if I eat something? Like I know she knows she'll be fine if she eats chicken nuggets. Like she'll be she's done it a million times.
Right.
And I'm like, just eat something else.
Right.
So she gets on this.
And a lot of kids are especially younger children, their memory and their experience is very in the moment. So if they have an experience like that, or even if they have an experience where they taste something that they absolutely hate and it's disgusting to them, because that happens to everybody, right? We eat stuff and it tastes like crap. So if a kid has that experience, they hold on to that, and then that's going to come up and we know, because we have the knowledge and the experience that not everything's going to taste bad. They don't have that necessarily, because they don't have the life experience behind them. So it's easy for us as adults and as parents to be like, it's yummy, just eat it. And for them, it's this physical restraint of them being like, I don't really trust that. So constant exposure and them kind of doing like a back door where when they're cooking with food, and especially when they're cooking at home with their parents, they're seeing that food can be exciting and fun. And then they start to feel more safe and more comfortable, and then they'll start to try new things.
Cool. So do you feel like every kid should have cooking classes? Like, is that, well,
and not necessarily cooking classes outside of the home. I think ideally I would love every kid to have a cooking experience at home with their parents. I think that is the ideal. I also understand, as a mom of 2 boys in New York City, that is not always possible. Because parents are working full time. The amount of work that we have to do as adults nowadays doesn't allow us to have that luxury. But having kids have an opportunity in some way to be connected to food on a relaxed level and in a relaxed environment and situation where it's not about getting things done. Like dinner time in your home, you know, in a family home with kids, it's all about finishing dinner and being done with it. It's not about enjoying it and the process of that, because then it's on to bedtime, right? so yeah, exactly. Because even me as a chef and somebody who cooks with their kids, and this is my passion and my love, dinner time is like, okay, we're doing dinner, we're going to bed, and I'm going to be free. So that's normal and that's okay. But then to understand that there's other opportunities or moments to provide that for your kid. And I tell all of my clients that when they come on, I have a family program that we do that's very one-on-one and works on strategy and schedule to really make a lifestyle change. And one of the things I tell every single client of mine is that it depends on what you want. And that want and that ideal is different for everybody. Sometimes eating together one time a week is that ideal, and that's okay. So thinking about what it is that you really want and then incorporating that in baby steps, piece by piece.
Okay. So, you know, I'm imagining like maybe like a weekend, like a weekend lunch that what would be like a good meal to practice with? Like what's a simple, like how do you pick, like what's the first thing that's like, I don't know, that is good for kids to practice?
So as far as, getting kids involved in the kitchen and the tasks that they can do, cutting soft vegetables is always a great first start, because they're easy to get through. And there's knives that you can get. I typically use Curious Chef knives with my kids in class, and they're nylon knives, and they look just like a regular chef knife, but they can't cut themselves with it. And in all of my classes, I teach the correct way to hold a knife, because a lot of people, even adults, are holding their knives incorrectly. So that first step is to learn. The first step is to learn how to.
You can show us
correctly. I do.
How am I holding my knife?
Do you want to hold on? I can go get one.
Yeah, kind of. Go ahead. Like,
okay. Yeah, it's fast. Hold on one second.
So I'm so curious to see if I've been holding my knives incorrectly. I mean, I don't think I've ever, actually, now thinking about it, like my parents, they put food together, but it wasn't like, cooking. Okay.
So this is a chef's knife.
Okay.
And so the Curious Chef knives are, I don't have one with me, but they're white nylon, and the blade over here looks like it's serrated, but it won't actually cut your kid. And what we do in class is we teach, this is the handle of your knife, this is the blade of the knife, right? So when you're holding your knife, you want to take your thumb and your pointer finger and you're pinching the blade. And these three fingers here are cradling the handle.
Really?
So yes, and so when you turn it this way, your thumb is here.
Right, okay.
And then your pointer finger is here and you're cradling it. And what that does, so a lot of people will hold completely on the handle or do like one of these, right? So you want to do here. So this way you're able to hold the knife without your other fingers. And that gives you the wrist control. And then it also, as an adult, you're not like straining your forearm. You ever cut food and all of a sudden you're like, have this like forearm cramp because you're like pushing so hard. So that, and this like wave motion in this way. And when we have a cutting board and like a demo setup, you're able to see that better. But starting with that hold is really important. And it helps adults and it helps kids too be able to
well, it helps them
be more efficient
too, and
to be safe.
I think that's one of the biggest fears is like, okay, I'm giving my kid knives, seems a little bit, they fight sometimes. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, and that's why those nylon knives are really great, because they can't cut themselves. Like it's not possible. So When you're cooking with your kids, showing them knife safety is really the first step. And having a day or the beginning and the first time you're bringing them in and really going over those things step by step and taking the time to do that. Because if you just let them in the kitchen and have them at it, then there's going to be moments of like, oh my God, what is going on? So taking that extra 5 or 10 minutes, and depending on your kid's age, sometimes you have to take that 5 or 10 minutes every time. Sometimes you have to do it a few times and then you don't have to anymore. But the more they do it, the more quickly they pick up on it. And then, soft vegetables are always great things to start with, like mushrooms. Celery is good. Bell peppers are good for kids.
Okay.
The harder stuff like carrots and potatoes, it takes a bunch of force. So the older kids can do that. But what you want to do is you want to eliminate any additional frustration that might come up. So keeping it super simple, picking herbs is a really great thing, stuff like that.
Strawberry or something. Yeah.
Squeezing lemons and limes, they love to do that.
Right. Okay.
One of my favorite things is crushing garlic. And if you take the cloves of garlic off of the head of garlic and then give them like a stainless steel bottle or something, have them put it on a cutting board and just smash the garlic, and they love that.
Sure.
And giving them their own space, like really saying like, this is your cutting board, this is your area, your station, and then giving them that independence. Kids will surprise you. I think that as their teacher, it's easier for me to open up that trust. As a parent, there's more emotion involved in that. So but trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, and they're going to surprise you. They're really capable.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about, now that we've got them in the kitchen, how can we create this, this ease throughout, let's just say September, in terms of, thinking about, what's for dinner, what's their role in the planning, or cooking, or, what are some, tips that you might want to pass along?
So kids can be involved in the kitchen, and it doesn't have to be just cooking. Connecting through food is more than just cooking with your kid. And in our family program, that's another major piece that we talk about, how to incorporate kids into the kitchen and what that looks like. So just talking about the meals that you're eating is a huge start. When you're going food shopping, talking about what ingredients you're buying. Sometimes for us as parents, food or food-related chores are a chore. And I got to go food shopping, and I got to do meal prep, and I got to do this. So trying not to view it as something that is a chore, and opening it up as a conversation with your kids and just with your family in general is going to naturally lead to that connection. And kids love to give you their input. So, they don't have to decide the whole meal, because sometimes that would be crazy. But saying, we're going to have chicken and potatoes today. What vegetable would you like? And letting them make some kind of a choice. With that. So that is one very easy way to do that. That's not so overwhelming.
Do you recommend, like, on the weekends, like, thinking about, like, do you think ahead of time for the week, or is it more just like, oh, I have this in the fridge, so this is what I'm going to make?
It depends. So for me, I think what I do is not relevant, because every family is different. So for some families really love to prep ahead, and like Sunday is their cook day, and they have everything ready, and it's just about, grabbing and going. Other families, they don't want to do that, or they don't like the idea of that for some reason. So having smaller, quicker recipes to go to, like 3 times a week, is a better option for them. Most of my clients, I do like to recommend having like a backup stash. So there's 2 things that I teach clients that are really great. One is that backup stash. And we talk about like not eating frozen foods and having things that are fresh. But if we're the ones making them, then it is fresh and we're using fresh ingredients. So batch cooking is really useful. And for school starting in September, starting your batch cooking now, a few weeks into August, is going to help you 3 or 4 weeks from now. So if you're making dinner and you're making chili, don't make chili just for that day. Make like 2 times the amount of chili.
Right.
Eat some of it and then put the other in the freezer. And you can use mason jars, you can use Tupperwares, whatever you have, to kind of like portion it and put it in the freezer. And you don't have to use it later that week or the next week.
Right.
Now you have it. So when you have a day that's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to cook? Like, I don't know what's going on. Oh, wait a minute. I have awesome chili in the freezer. And doing that a couple of times is going to give you a backup plan. And then since you're already making it anyway, all you have to do is just make twice the amount. So it doesn't feel like you're doing extra work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing is teaching clients how to do like adding flavor to your meals. And there's things like marinades, various sauces and stuff that you can make ahead and keep in your pantry or in your fridge for a long amount of time. And then you can just grab that and it makes your meal like your cook time go twice as fast, and you still get to eat yummy food instead of having plain protein and vegetables.
Right. Yeah. Which gets tiring. Like, chicken every single day.
Right. But if you have like marinated chicken with garlic and mint and soy sauce and like all of these yummy ingredients, all of a sudden it's not so bad.
So do you then like keep these containers of like marinades and stuff in your fridge? Is that Yeah,
so you can make them ahead depending on when you plan on using them. You can either freeze them or you can put them in your fridge. And then there's also like making a rub. So a rub is a combination of spices. And so instead of going into your cabinet and pulling down 7 different spices and putting them on your pork, you take 1 mason jar that's already combined with everything and you sprinkle it on and you're done. So it saves you 10 minutes, which can be a big amount of time when you have like a kid behind you screaming, going, "Mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy." Yeah.
Too long to make dinner.
Right. Exactly.
So any final like words of wisdom, advice, how a mom can stay mindful and calm when it comes to dinner time?
Think about yourself first. Think about where you're at during that moment and in that day, and really ask yourself what you're ready to handle. Because there's going to be days where you're like, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling patient. Like I have some space here. Hey, bring your kid in and then you can have them, do a small task. And a lot of the times cooking with your kids, especially younger ones, it doesn't last as long as you think it's going to last. So they come in and they pick a couple of herbs and they're helping you and then they're done and they've connected with you. And because they've connected with you, now they're going to go off and play on their own or like do something. So sometimes we like build this like situation up where like, oh, we have to like cook with them and do all these things. And really they're going to like touch some herbs for 5 seconds and then leave. And then you're like, oh, okay. Like, so don't always think that it's going to be, it's going to be really hard, because it could surprise you. But at the same time, make sure that you're prepared and you're in a headspace to be able to put out that energy as well. Because they mimic us. So if they're feeling that we're tense, they're going to pick up on that. And like I said, sometimes you can't cook with your kids right away, and that's okay. Just talking to them and having that conversation with them and opening that up is an amazing first step. So we don't have to try so hard.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. I love that. Just thinking about, am I feeling patient today? Is this, do I have, a task that I can invite them in? And it's okay if they say no or don't want to do it.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love that, your advice about, making it up, your own way. You don't have to do what you do or what I do or what, your friends
Yeah.
do, but finding, something, some way to reduce some of the stress and overwhelm that can come, around the dinner time where, trying to just, stay present, staying in the moment. And, in 5 years, it'll all be different and you'll have to learn a whole
Yeah.
other skill.
Exactly.
Kim,
Exactly.
where can people learn more about you, find you? Can you please share your website and where you are?
Of course. So if you go to cookwithyoursenses.com, you can check out the various offerings that I have. And I would really love to connect with many of you in the future. If you go on to cookwithyoursenses.com and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and sign up for our newsletter, we're always sending monthly content out that's giving you new ideas on how to cook with your kids and what those moments are that you can connect with them through food and make things a little less overwhelming or stressful. So come and join the website, get on our newsletter. We have a lot of new stuff coming this fall. We have a new space opening up in Queens, New York, where we're going to be teaching some cooking classes there. With an indoor garden. So there's a lot happening and there's really great content coming your way. So I invite you to come and join me.
Well, that is super, super exciting. I'm so happy for you and your new space and new venture. And I know it's going to be super successful because the world needs you and more people like you that, are inspiring kids to eat healthy and be mindful. And so I so appreciate your time and I'm sure we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.